Hi, it's G from Native Speakers Academy, and welcome to another edition of our new series for the new term. This series is going to be entitled Useful Stuff, and these short presentations are supplements to help the students of Native Speakers Academy get a better world view. If you'd like more information about what we do, it's www.nsa-slovakia.com. And you can also find us all over the social media network. Now, I was told my introductions were too long, so I'm going to get down to business today. We begin with the history of money, and I hope you find it interesting. If you are sitting comfortably, or standing, or just chilling out somewhere, then we will begin. The story of money goes hand in hand with that of mankind. Considering how important money is to each of us, this should come as no surprise. Since at least as far back as 1200 BC, I was thinking about saying 1200 BC. I should say that, shouldn't I? People have been giving value to objects such as cowrie shells, metals, paper, and now computer code such as Bitcoin to use as mediums of exchange. Yes, money is important, and just think about how could you travel anywhere if you don't have any money for that bus fare or the train ride or taxi home. When considering the value of, let's say, a cowrie shell, a person today may wonder why his or her money has value. Well, actually, it does not have inherent value. It does not have inherent value. You see, it's valueless, really. It's a fantasy world. And what people will do for this fantasy world is quite incredible. Anyway, its worth comes from the implicit agreement, the implied, the inner agreement between everyone using that form of money. So if everyone agrees it's a currency, then it's a currency. As long as they believe their money has value, it does. Once they start losing faith in that money, value will drop. So keyword there is faith, because it's a belief system and so a religion. Let's continue. Bartering and exchange. Bartering is exchanging products or services for commodities. When one type of commodity is traded for another type of commodity, these commodities are called commodity money. Things that are used by most people, or have been used by people down through time, include seeds, grain, salt, tea, cattle, other livestock, other animals, perhaps even human livestock at one point in time. Even coffee is used as a measure of value in currency. And anything that is generally considered stable and trustworthy can be valued in that sense. Even things like Coca-Cola sometimes can be used to measure currencies. So, taxes were first collected in Egypt close to 5,000 years ago, when goods and labor were offered as ways of paying. Oh yes, the origin of taxes. And then the Pharaoh would allow you a little bit of land, and he would give you some water. In fact, water was, or it's believed that water was used as a currency during that period of history. So if you did your job well, then the pharaoh allowed water to flow into your region so that you could have crops and grow your own food. That's why so much of the language connected with money is still connected with water. We have the currency and the current, we have the stream and the flow of money, we have liquidity, and we have banks, as in river banks, controlling the direction of the business, or the busyness, as I like to call it. So, shall we read more? Let's see. Circa around the time of 1200 BC, archaeologists believed that cowrie shells were first used in China. These hardy decorative shells have also been used as currency by other cultures in other lands at other times. And archaeologists are always uncovering new information about the history of civilizations and how they traded and what they used. Circa 1000 BC. Metals. The first use of metal as money is believed to have been around 3000 years ago in China. The metal was formed into shapes to resemble the cowrie shells. There we go. Notice how the shell also is symbolic of the sun there. And on the right side, we have sun and a cloud and some rain. On sunny days have people tipping more than dreary or dull or dark days do. TIP, T-I-P, is the acronym for to ensure promptness. Yep, the sun sells, basically. I have a friend who works for a company that produces a well-known soda fizzy drink, and the company has good profits this year, and the reason is the sun. Because more people are outside, more people are buying certain kinds of products. So there we go. The first coins. The first coins minted were probably the Lydian electrum, which is connected to, in a place connected to present-day Turkey. Why does that make sense there? It says tries from present-day Turkey. The first coins minted were probably the Lydian electrum, which came from a place that we call present-day Turkey. There we go. The graphics are all very nice, but there's always some little grammar thing going on there. Nothing's perfect. These coins, made of a gold and silver alloy, sported a lion's head on one side. Very symbolic there. And that was circa 600 BC. Moving on, we can see the development of currencies to include paper money. Paper money first made its way into marketplaces a mere 1,000 years ago, if you believe mainstream history. During the Tang dynasty in China, numismatics, scientists who study the history of money. Did you know there were scientists whose job it is to study the history of money? How bizarre. Anyway, numismatics believed that this was the byproduct of block printing. And Marco Polo was amazed by the paper currency he saw during his travels through China. But he was not the first. Oh look, there's a picture of, what's that? Could be a deer. Using the word buck to mean a dollar comes from the days when many Americans traded animal skins, including those from deer and elk. Bucks. Yeah, there's slang in all countries for money. £5 in Britain is a fiver. £1 in Britain is a quid. And take a look at those paper notes that you use in Europe if you have the euro. there's a signature on the notes. There's a name. Whose name is it? Who knows? Nobody knows. Can you find out? Because a paper is basically a legal document, and it's a form of contract, and it needs to have a signature on it, and you need to know whose signature it is that's on it. And on the euro, could be Mickey Mouse. Nobody knows. Moving on. Banking in Europe. The modern form of banking had its birth in medieval and early Renaissance Italy, particularly the nation's wealthy northern cities. One of the most famous of the banks from this period is the Medici Bank, founded by Giovanni Medici in 1397. And if you ask me, the Medicis are still pretty powerful within Europe today. And it's interesting for me because those people who know something about the school and what we do here know that we are based in Banska Bystrica, which is a town right in the heart of Europe, and we're in Slovakia. And Banska means mine, and Bystrica was one of the many mining towns that existed. In fact, the first mining university was opened not far from where I am standing today. And one of the families that set up the mining within this region was the Fugger family, and the Fugger family married into the Medici family. If you look at history, it's also interesting from the perspective of accounting, especially double book accounting, as that, as far as I'm aware, came from this region. So, moving on, we go forward to 1637, where we find the wampum. The Massachusetts Bay Colony declared wampum, strings of clamshells used as money by American Indians, legal tender. See, it can be anything you want it to be. It's all fantasy. Just how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? The gold standard. Britain pegged its currency to gold to help govern inflation, because you need to have some solid relationship with something physical. If you don't, then people can just end up printing money endlessly for themselves and their friends, and you can call that quantitative easing, as we have, which then leads to austerity, which is basically rationing everything when you're not in a time of war. The US government too began to print paper greenbacks to finance the Civil War. It didn't actually print them to finance the Civil War. It actually printed them to stop the Civil War in July 1861, because the North and the South were both borrowing heavily from European banks at very high interest rates. And so it was necessary to perpetuate the war in order to create money to pay back to these banks that were lending to the warmongers of the time. And so when Lincoln created these greenbacks, it was with very low interest rate payments, and so it no longer became profitable to be in the war industry. And so we had peace, and what you get is a bullet in the head. These first paper notes were worth 1 cent, 5 cents, 25 cents, and 50 cents. How time has changed. The paper used in US bills is not made from trees, but rather made up of 75% cotton and 25% linen. And that's because the hemp plant is not legal. It would probably be more logical to make it from that plant. Moving forward, because of course nothing happened between 1816 and 1950, except for the Federal Reserve and the wars connected to it, which they don't want you to know about with this infographic because they haven't put it in there, but never mind. We could talk about how countries lose all sovereignty when you move your central bank outside of your system, and then you end up just paying interest, and it's just running away, and you've well, welcome to the world we live in today. All the good things and all the bad things rolled into one. 1950, the credit card. Frank X. McNamara, head of the Hamilton Credit Corporation, invented the credit card. Wise man. Good man, as we all now have 2 or 3 or 4 of these in our wallet. Some of us even have some credit on them. Although it did make the transportation of finances easier. See, that's one thing that's always confused me. Why did we transfer to the euro when we already had an international credit card-based system in place? It just seems ridiculous. From a logical standpoint, of course, if you want to just screw countries and have people as permanent tax slaves, it's a grand idea. Summer 2011, Google Wallet and ClearX Exchange. The newest monetary transformation will turn your phone into your wallet. That's why we all need phones. And possibly send bills, coins, and credit cards the way of bags of salt and cowrie shells. Maybe we shall see what happens with that. This is the next step down the technotronic road, which will see people having little chips embedded in their shoulders or their elbows or the backs of their necks for ridiculous reasons. Anyway, let's check out the last little piece of information together. A stack 1 million US $1 bills would weigh, a stack of 1 million US $1 bills would weigh 1 ton and would be 361 feet high, the same length as 6 sperm whales lined up from end to end. Isn't it just absolutely inane and ridiculous that somebody actually decided to calculate that? Somebody's got too much time on their hands, let me tell you. More play money. Monopoly. Hey, more play money has been printed by Parker Brothers for its Monopoly games than real money has been issued in the US by the Federal Reserve, except until the last few years where they've just been printing and printing and printing and printing and giving to their friends, and the friends have been spending and spending and spending and buying yachts and houses and countries, and we'll never see the end of it, especially with ridiculous things like futures markets to invest in. How can you invest in something that doesn't really even exist yet? 65% of Americans would live on a desert island all by themselves for an entire year for $1 million. It's amazing the number of ridiculous things that people will do for money. Because you then can exchange it for something useful, but still an interesting way to control people, I guess. I like the old method of bartering, but it's a bit hard to carry 10 sheep around with you when you move. So that's a little bit about the history of money. I hope that you found it at least a little bit interesting. Maybe you picked up some new information from it. Maybe you'd like more information about it. Maybe you've got an idea that you can suggest for another presentation. Why don't you let me know? As I said at the beginning, this is our Useful Stuff series, and these are supplements for the students studying in Native Speakers Academy. Wherever you are, I hope that you're going to have a great day, and why don't you link to us through social media? Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Pinterest, YouTube, you know the score, or you can just ignore us, which is what most people do, I think. Thanks again, and there'll be another short presentation tomorrow, I hope. Take care, guys.